Alright guys, so I keep getting asked in my comments to do like a tutorial or an overview of Applied Energistics for everybody, so that's what I'm going to do. This is Applied Energistics version 9i for Feed the Beast Ultimate 1.4.7. There's a new version of Applied Energistics that actually appears in the chat log here when you log into Ultimate that says revision 11.e is now available. I think that's the latest version, probably is. You'll probably be able to find that version in the 1.5.2 beta pack. It's got a lot of cool changes, but since this is for Ultimate and this is like the official Applied Energistics Feed the Beast mod pack that most people will be using, this is the version that I'm going to cover. Okay, so Applied Energistics. The basic thing that you need to know about it is you need this block. This is a quartz block. And you are going to need a whole heck of a lot of this block. So be prepared to go out, find it, set up quarries, get as much of this stuff as you can. I would say somewhere around 500 of the quartz pieces and about 500 of the dust will get you a semi-decent Applied Energistics system, but you're still going to want more than that. So yeah. Always find this stuff and grab it, use fortune, do what you gotta do, make sure you have it. The very first things you can make in a brand new world with Applied Energistics is this quartz grindstone. Now this is pretty cool. It's like a manual crank macerator. So basically you put an ore in here, you right click the handle, it turns, and I think you have to do that about 8 times to macerate an item. So if we take like a quartz crystal here and we stick those in here, so you can see there's like the input, this is the processing slot, and this is the output. So if you sit here and you right click this thing a few times, a piece of quartz goes right here. You spin that around a few more times. See, that's 4, I think, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now the quartz goes from here to here. Now you got quartz dust. I'm actually not sure if this turns all of these into quartz dust every time or not. It's probably something I should find out. But yeah, that's a good way to get some quartz dust. It'll turn 1 ore, if you have Soak Touch, into 10 dust. So yeah, that's pretty good. If you mine it normally, you get a chance of getting some of the quartz crystal and the quartz dust. I believe both are random. So yeah, you can get a good amount of those if you use fortune on it. Okay, so let's move on. The very first thing you're probably going to want to make in Applied Energistics is one of these Emi chests. This is the very lowest tier thing. It's just a regular chest, and you could put a storage drive in it. Actually, I'm going to have to go into cheat mode real quick and grab myself some power to power these things. Applied Energistics storage requires power, so be prepared to always have power on hand. Let's do... Oh, we can just do these hybrid solar panels. You don't need this much power. Yeah, there we go. You don't need this much power, but just to get things going here. So yeah, that's all you need to do. Provided some power. I think one chest like this probably only requires maybe 2 MJ or 5 or 10 EU a tick. Something like that just to keep it going. They do use more power if you're putting items in and taking items out, so be aware of that. But yeah, they always have a constant draw of power. So if you get rid of the power supply, after a little bit of time, the power shuts off and you can't do anything here. Let's see if we can see that happen. After a few more seconds, this will probably just gray out and then we won't have anything going on. But yep, so make sure you always have power so you can always access your stuff. Otherwise, it locks you out. Okay, so you have the ME chest and you want to upgrade it. So the first thing you want to do is get a ME controller. So the ME controller is like the heart of any Applied Energistics system. From this thing, you power this block. Let's go and stick a power source there. You can see the lights coming on. You power this up and then you can connect cables to other devices, such as another ME chest over here. This thing's still green? Yeah, I guess it holds its power for quite some time, but that will eventually turn off. Okay, so you have a chest, you have your controller. So how do you see what's in this chest? If you right click on the chest, you can see some stuff here. That's pretty cool. You can also hook up an ME terminal. This will take all of the different chests you have hooked up to your network and put them in one single inventory. So if you had 30 chests, some downstairs, some upstairs, whatever, all connected via these ME cables, all the stuff would show up here. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, so I guess this would be a better example. You can upgrade your chest to one of these Emi Drives. These Emi Drives hold multiple discs, but this is the only way you can see like what's in here. If you right click on it, you can just see there's discs, but there's no way to see, you know, any of the items on here. So that's where like this Emi terminal comes in handy. This shows you all of the different items that are on those discs in this location. So you can have all of these guys filled up and see all that stuff here. So that's really awesome. One thing to note about these discs, though, if you look at it, you can see this is the lowest here. This is a 1K storage to go all the way up to 64K. But you can see right here, it says 89 out of 1,024 bytes used. Items are stored on these discs in what's called bytes. But you can also see below that, it says 7 out of 63 types. So that means you can put 63 unique different items on a disk, but after that, you can't put anything else on there. So that's something to take note of. Once you put 63 different unique items in here, you'll spill over onto this disk and start filling up the different types on here. But any of your items that are the same exact thing, like you put in a couple stacks of cobblestone, those will all go right on this thing just fine, only take up one type, and just use up a little bit of the storage space on the disk. So that's how these things work. So once you have, you know, your storage set up, you have your power hooked up, and you have an ME terminal, the next thing you probably want to do is make one of these ME wireless access points. So the wireless access points allow you to wirelessly get to this screen pretty much. So if we look at here, actually, let me grab a ME wireless access terminal. And again, guys, I'm not going to go through all the different crafting recipes for these things. I mean, they're nothing super hard. You just really need a lot of that quartz crystal. So you grab your ME wireless access terminal, and you can see the tooltip says unlinked. So what you need to do is come over to your ME controller, and there's this little thing here. So you drop that guy in here. Now it says linked, and now you can step away from your system and see all the items that are in there. This works like in a sphere around the access point, and you can have as many of these access points as you want. I believe by default you can go 16 blocks away, and you can add these wireless boosters. Each booster adds 1 block distance further, so this one wireless access point can go 32 blocks away. So you can run cable 64 blocks this way, put another access point with more of these boosters, and be able to access your stuff everywhere in between. So that's pretty cool. I like this. Let's go ahead and put that away for now. Okay, so we've looked at the controller, we looked at the chest, we looked at the terminal. Well, let's look at a new item. This is called an import bus. We right click on it, we got an import bus here, and we got some stuff. We can, you know, have it do things with the redstone signal active or the redstone signal off, or if you give it once a pulse. That means like if you have a constant redstone signal going to it, it'll only do one action. It won't keep going. Okay, so always active is probably what most people are going to have this set as. So it's always going to try and import things. There's a button here for stack mode. You can have it extract one item at a time. You can have it extract full stacks of items. You can... No, that's it. That's it for the import bus. Okay, so the way this is set up right now, let's give it some power. So the way this is set up right now, we have a chest here with some iron ore, and we have our ME terminal. We have an import bus on this pulverizer, and this pulverizer is getting power from this redstone energy cell. So the way that this is going to work is you grab just one piece of iron. In fact, we could probably grab more than that. Throw it into the pulverizer. This pulverizes, and once it's done, the import bus is going to take the items out of here and put it into the ME system. So if we look here, we see there's 2. Now we got 4, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that is really awesome. One thing to note on the import buses, though, especially if you're working with thermal expansion machines, you need to click the configuration gear, and make sure wherever you have the import bus set to, this is colorless. There's a bunch of different options here. You have blue. Blue is like where items go in. Say you want to put items in through the back. That's the black is now blue, but you don't, or the back is now blue. Red is where you want to export. Say you have a chest or something, it'll try and dump those items into that. We're not doing that. Yellow is for this one, and I think orange is for both of those. And then the colorless one is what you want, and that will allow the Emi system to pull items out of the pulverizer. Okay, let's move on. So we looked at the import bus. Let's take a look at the export bus. As you can guess, it probably does the exact opposite, and it puts items into something. So we're going to export items out of the Emi system and through through this export bus, if I can click on it. And the interface is pretty much the same. Got the same redstone signal things. This one has move single items, move stacks of items, move single items / craft. We'll go into that later. And always craft items. And that's it. So it's got two additional items here. Move single items and craft, or always craft items. Okay. So the way this is set up is it's going to take anything from the Emi system, and it's going to export it into this chest. Now, I don't think I mentioned this before, and down here, all of these things are separated by these Emi cables, but you don't have to separate them by Emi cables. As long as all the blocks that require power are touching each other, like this here, like this here, these will all get power as long as the Emi controller has power, and it's touching this, and this is touching this. These are all powered. So yeah, that's how this is getting power over here. And then this export bus is attached to a block that has power. So this export bus works. So say you have a stack, well, I guess 4 or 5 stacks of iridium blocks in your Emi system, and you want to stick in this chest. Easiest thing to do is just grab one of these guys, and you're going to set the export pattern here to be an iridium block. And once you do that, it's going to start exporting one item at a time. I can go and throw that in there too. So if we switch this over to move stacks of items, it just dumps everything over here stacks at a time. So yep, export buses are very, very useful. Okay, so we looked at the import and export bus. The next bus to look at would be a storage bus. And as you can probably guess, a storage bus is used to store things. So instead of hooking up an Emi chest or an Emi storage drive, you can use a chest or something else that has some kind of storage, like an MFR deep storage unit, if you wanted to, and a storage bus. So if we put... Oh, okay, well, actually, if we look in the Emi terminal, we can see there's 448 chests in the Emi system. That's because there's 448 chests here. If we take these out, you can see there's only 128 left, and if we put those into here, you can see they're right back into this chest. So yeah, that works just like that. So if we look at the storage bus a little bit closer, there's some other things we can do here. Okay, so there's storage bus, and then a hidden thing on the storage bus is something I actually need to grab. Let's do an Omni wrench. We can do, if you shift right click on it, you can do an Emi storage priority. Now the higher the number, this is where the items are going to go first. So say you have a storage bus and you have an Emi chest on the same thing, and let's grab, I don't know, stone. That's the first thing I'm seeing here. Now if we want to put the stone in this chest and not here, say we want to fill up this chest first. Oops, there goes the chest. Let's grab another one of those. So you want to fill up that chest first, you need to set a priority on this storage bus. Otherwise, I think it goes by closest. I'm not exactly sure. But shift right click on here. Let's just bump this up to 64. And then we can go ahead and go into this Emi terminal, dump the stone in. And it doesn't go here, but it does end up here. Now the same thing can be done with this chest. If we shift right click on the chest, we can bring up this storage priority. So let's bump this up to 128. Okay, let's put the stone in. And as expected, I turn the chest. But if we click on it without a wrench, the stone is in this Emi chest, and it's not in this normal chest. Okay, let me go ahead and set it to daytime once again. Other things you can do on this storage bus, if we right click on it, we can set a filter saying we want this to always have stone. What else is another good item? We could put chests in there, and we could put, oh, I don't know, large electric buffers. Sure, we'll go ahead and do that. And let's just grab some chestnut wood. Okay, so we're gonna set the priority of this bus really high. We want everything to go here first. Yep, we want everything to go there first. So let's go ahead and put the stone in. We'll put the chestnut in, large electric buffer, and chests. Okay. So since the storage bus is set to only accept stone, chests, and large electric buffers, we can expect to find those here. But the chestnut wood is over here, even though this guy has a higher priority than this guy. So that's because the storage bus, you can set filters and say, I only want to keep these types of items in whatever my attached storage is. And it'll prioritize all those items first based on the storage priority. And then anything else, it'll try and put it in the next available space, which would be this ME chest. Okay, so that's a lot to take in. Once you play around with that for a little while yourself, I'm sure it'll be pretty easy to understand. Alright, so here we have a new item. This is an ME crafting terminal. So just like before, we have the ME terminal, and these guys are touching. We have storage bus over here, or I'm sorry, an ME chest. Now we have a crafting terminal. So we have a crafting grid here, and this crafting terminal will actually show you all the items in your ME network. So we can take items, say we want to take some wood and we want to turn it into planks. You can click it and put it in there, just like that, and it just keeps using this, keeping the pattern here. So this is pretty awesome for like crafting a lot of stuff. You can shift click on it to get, a stack of items in your own inventory, and I'll use, the items from your ME network. So yep, this is pretty awesome. I like this quite a lot. Very useful item to have. Okay, so let's look at another item. Over here we have storage monitors. I think that's what these called, or item monitors. These are pretty useful. You can show all the different items that are in your ME network with them, or how many of those items you have. So all you have to do is right click on one of these and it'll be like, okay, you have 63 of those quartz, 63 of those quartz dust, and 63 of the gold dust. If I put a gold dust in there, this updates to 64, and so on and so forth. Okay, so those are pretty cool. Let me grab one item out of here. There's an item called a conversion matrix. So normally if you right click on these things, it just erases. If you left click on them, nothing happens. You can also use a wrench and shift right click on it to lock and unlock them. So locking it will prevent you from adding any more items or any different types of items. But right clicking it with the conversion matrix will throw out a stack of those items. So if we do it here and we right click, we can get those items out. And as you can see, they're not in the storage and the numbers have changed. It says there's 0 of those in the system. So we can go and throw those back in there, and there they go. Unfortunately, these cannot have items put into them like the factorization barrels. You can only take items out of them. So yeah, just be aware of that. Okay, so we've gone over quite a lot of stuff with the Applied Energistics. Here's another new item. This is called an MEIO port. So say you have a chest and you got a whole bunch of stuff, random things everywhere, and you only want, let's say, all of your raw ores on one of these storage disks. So let's go ahead and grab a bunch of the raw ores, and we will introduce another new item. This is called an ME preformatter. So you can take any of your storage drives, stick it in here, you can name it, we'll just call this ores, and then you can set filters on that drive of the items that you want that disk to contain. So if we do that, we click format, you can see right here it now says preformatted on this thing. Okay, so we can clear this all out and delete that. And I believe if we stick this back in here, yep, it shows you the name again that you can rename it and reformat it. And it also shows you all of the items that this disk can contain. So we only want lapis, iron, and gold ores on here. Okay, let's put that stuff back in here. Okay, so with the I/O port, this does need to be attached to your main Emi network with a Emi controller. So with the Emi I/O port, we have a few different options. We have a disk here and a disk array here. So this is basically saying take items from the Emi network and stick it on a drive, or you can click this button and transfer data to the network. The opposite way, go from the disk to the Emi network. We're going to do it this way. We're going to pull items out of the network and put it onto a disk. We have a couple other buttons down here. We can say move to output when work is done. So that means once it's completed transferring everything over onto this disk, it'll put the item over here. We can do the same thing. If the drive fills up, we'll put it over here. Or this is move to output when empty, and that's if we're going from the disk to the network. Okay, and it also has, the redstone signal on, off, or it doesn't care. So if we take this ME disk, this is pre-formatted to only accept ores, and we want to go from the network to the disk, we can just stick it right here. And let's see, move to output when work is done. Okay, so all the items should have gone from the network onto the disk, and now it's moved over here. So now we can see it has 192 out of 1024 bytes used and 3 out of 63 types. Okay, so this disk will now contain all of the ores. If we take this drive out and put this drive in there, we now see all of our ores. So that's pretty awesome. Go and do that. And in reverse order, if we want to go from the disk back to the network, we can just do that. The item should now be off of this disk. 96, yeah, that should be right. Yeah, the items are now off of this pre-formatted disk and back into our Emi network. So that is how the pre-formatter and the I/O port works. Now, the reason why you'd ever want to do this, maybe you want to keep all of the items from one mod on a certain disk. Another reason to do this is if you put one item of one type on a disk, let's take a look at this real quick. Let me grab all of these items out of here. Let me grab that stuff. Okay, and let me grab one of these blank disks. Okay, and we'll take that out. Okay, so this disk right here says 0 out of 1024 bytes used, 0 out of 63 types. So if we put one iron ore in there, it's now using 9 bytes out of 1024. So 9 is actually kind of a lot for one item. If we put another iron ore in there, it's still using 9. We can put another one in there, still using 9. So if we put a full stack of iron in there, it's using 16. So 64 items uses about 7 bytes of storage, whereas one unique item used 9. So we have 16 in there. If we put one piece of gold, we should have 25 bytes. Yep, and if we put the full stack in there, we're now using 32 with 2 different unique types. So as you can see, each unique type adds a bunch of space or a bunch of storage to the disk. So one thing you'd want to do is keep the minimal amount of items on one disk, like the minimal amount of unique items, especially if you're doing like dumping all your cobblestone or something into your Emi network. You want to keep your cobble separated. You want to keep like your dirt separated, all that kind of stuff. So you could pre-format it, keep your ores on one disk, keep all your dusts on one disk, things like that. All your different mods, you can keep those all separated. I mean, there's a bunch of different things you can do if you want to make the most out of your storage space. So another thing of Applied Energistics is auto crafting. So here we have ME Molecular Assembler Chamber. So what this does is you can take a whole bunch of different crafting recipes, dump it in there, and then you'll have access to that anywhere on your Emi network. So let's go ahead and give this guy power, and let's take a look what we got here. We have heat vents, crafting CPUs, pattern providers, and an assembler containment walls. All of these guys are used to make this assembler chamber. And the way the assembler chamber is set up is you need the containment walls around the edges of the outside of this item. Anywhere that's not a containment wall has to be heat vents. And then inside, you have to put the crafting CPU and the pattern providers. Both of these have to be inside. I believe each one of these auto crafting units needs one pattern provider, and the rest of them can be CPUs, or you can mix and match them any way you want as long as it has at least one pattern provider inside of it. Okay, so inside of here, I have 3 patterns already created, and in fact, let me go ahead and show you how to do that. Let me grab just a pattern here, and let me grab my on creative. Let me grab like some oak logs. Okay, so if we come to a ME pattern encoder, it looks like a crafting grid, but it's not a crafting grid. It accepts blank patterns over here, and you fill out whatever you want your crafting recipe to be over here. For instance, oak wood turns into 4 planks. We can say encode that, and this pattern now says crafts 4 oak wood planks with 1 oak wood. So as long as this pattern's in your system and you have oak wood in your system, you can say give me 1,000 oak planks, and if you have all the wood to do it, it'll craft these guys into the planks and make 1,000 of them. Okay, so one more thing you can do with the pattern encoder, which isn't obvious, is you can make any pattern you want. So like we were doing before, 1 oak wood equals 4 planks, but we could also change this pattern and say that 1 wood equals a crafting monitor. Well, why would you want to do this? Well, some recipes don't have patterns. So like for instance, if we come in here, we do iron. We say 1 iron ore. Oh, well, I guess we'll grab 64 of those. We say 1 iron ore, and that doesn't have a recipe by default. So this iron ore does nothing. We can say 1 iron ore equals 1 iron ingot, and we can grab a pattern. Let me do that real quick. Let's grab a blank pattern, and we can go ahead and encode that. This will come in handy later. So let me just go ahead and get rid of these things. Okay, so in here, we currently have crafts 4 oak wood planks with 1 oak wood. We have craft 4 sticks with 2 oak planks. And we also have crafts 1 wooden pickaxe with 3 oak wood planks and 2 sticks. So if we were to take this pattern and go over here to the pattern encoder, you can stick it right here and see the recipe. So it's, as you would expect to make a wooden pickaxe, 3 planks and 2 sticks. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that in here. Now, if we look at this chest, actually, maybe we can't look at it in this chest. Let me grab an ME terminal. Mod, Applied Energistics. Or, no, not the controller. I need the access terminal. Okay, so let's stick an access terminal here. There we go. Yeah, you can't see all the crafting recipes in an ME chest, only storage items. The ME terminal will show you storage items plus anything that you can craft. Okay, so let's say the ME system has 64 logs, and I want a wooden pickaxe. So I could say just go ahead and craft 1, and you can see it used some logs, turn into planks, turn those into sticks, and there we go, there's a wooden pickaxe. So I can also say make me 64 of those, and this thing's just going to go to town, continually making planks, making sticks, making these pickaxes. So yeah, the auto crafting is very powerful, and this is just going to keep going until it fulfills however many we requested. So it's probably actually going to run out of logs, I think, before it can finish. Or maybe it had just enough. Well, there we go. So let's go ahead and move on from here. Okay, so over here we have yet another ME network. Let's go ahead and give this guy some power. In the chest, we have more crafting recipes similar to what we've done before. This one says it can craft 1 block of iron with 9 ingots. This one says it can craft 1 iron ingot with 1 iron dust. And this one says it can craft 2 iron dust with 1 iron ore. Okay, well, how are we going to do that? Well, that's where this new block comes into play. This is an ME interface. These interfaces are very, very powerful. Now, what you can do with the interfaces is you can, say, export a certain amount of items here. You put in the configuration. Let's see, what does this have in the system? iron ore. So if we take 32 iron ore and we put it right here and we say, I want 32 iron ore always outputted here. And here we go. Here's some exported items. So we can always grab 32 iron out of this thing. We can set this to pretty much any amount we want, and this updates over here. These items we can grab, and this is the pattern. Okay, so if we put more than 22 in there, those get taken back into the system, and if we clear this, these all disappear. Okay, also down here there's a processing slot, and these can accept those patterns just like we put into the auto crafting thing. So if we come over here and grab these patterns, let's just go and grab them all. So this is a macerator, fully overclocked and powered, ready to go. This thing can accept iron ore. It'll macerate it and turn it into 2 iron dust. So we're going to want that pattern. So right here it says craft 2 iron dust with 1 iron ore. We can go ahead and stick that guy in there. Right here we have an electric furnace, fully overclocked. And this will turn the iron dust into iron ingots and that's what this pattern says, crafts 1 iron ingot with 1 iron dust. So we will stick that pattern in this interface. Okay, and then finally we have a compressor, and this compressor will craft 1 iron block with 9 iron ingots. Again, stick it right in that slot. Pretty easy, right? So you can also hold shift, and it'll show you the different item, like what the exported item is going to end up being. So it's going to take the dust and turn it into an ingot. This one's going to take the ingots and turn it into a block. And now if we come over here to the crafting terminal, we can see that we can craft any of these. We can craft a block of iron, we can craft some dust, or we can craft an ingot. So this is where the auto crafting and the interfaces really come in handy. So we could say, make an iron block, just one, begin. So it's going to start macerating dust. It's going to start putting it into the furnace and smelting it. And finally, once it gets 9, it exports it right in here and sends it on its way. Back behind here, I have import buses. So those are all being pulled back into the system. And I have an Emi cable here, which is, attaching this Emi interface to the network. And since these guys are touching each other, they're all a part of the network. Okay, so if we look over here, we can see that we now have 1 block of iron. So that is pretty awesome. All right. So now that we can auto craft blocks of iron, we can use this export bus like I was talking about before. It has these other things. Let me go ahead and get rid of that actually. We have move single items, move stacks of items, move single items and craft, or always craft items. So the move single items or craft means if we have whatever item we put into this export bus interface here, if it has that items, it's just going to go ahead and export them. If it doesn't have them, but it has a recipe for them, it will make the recipe and then export the produced item, right? We can do always craft items. Generally, generally I would always use this one. So if you have the items in your system, it's just going to export them, or then it's going to try and craft them. So we can do that. We can set a pattern here for blocks of iron, move single items, craft, and it's going to try and put it into this blast furnace. Well, look at that. We have a block of iron here in our blast furnace now. It's actually taken the ore from our Emi network, it's macerated it, smelted it, compressed it, and then exported over here into the blast furnace to be turned into steel whenever this is ready to be done. Now, we can make this better also, which I didn't do here, but if I grab an Emi import bus and stick it right like that, this will import the product. So once this turns to steel, the steel block will be imported back into our network, and we will then eventually have steel blocks in this Emi chest. Okay, so one other thing that I like using these interfaces for, you can export items. You can also use these interfaces to pipe items using buildcraft pipes. I think red power pipes work too. If you have a thermal expansion machine with the export pointing to it, it will export into it. This acts just like a chest. One thing I like doing is using the interface for quarries. You can use like thermal expansion item tesseracts and a quarry block. The quarry will export the items into the tesseract. The tesseract will throw the items into the interface. And since the interface the export items are set to 5 dirt here. Everything else will go right into the system onto your drive. So if we come over here and we turn this quarry on, it'll go ahead and build itself real quick, and then it's going to just start quarrying out the little bit of dirt we have here. But once it gets done, or once it starts doing that, we will see items going into our Emi network here. Okay, so here the quarry goes, and it's going to start doing its thing. There we go. Here's a whole bunch of dirt. And we did have an export set up here, so we have 5. We can just go ahead and do that if we wanted to, but all the extra dirt that comes into our system is just going to go ahead and go right onto our storage drive here. And yeah, that's a pretty good way to do your quarries. This is how I generally do my quarrying now. I believe this is probably about the most lag-free you can do. I know some people use ender chests and a whole bunch of import buses on the ender chest, but I personally like this the best. Okay, so here is one more new item that we haven't seen yet. This is an ME level emitter. So what a level emitter does is you can specify an item, you can specify how much of that item, and you can say emit a redstone level when it's above that limit or below that limit. So right now, this ME level emitter is set to, if there's 2 grass blocks or more, it should emit a redstone signal. Let's go ahead and turn this on. We can see there's 1 grass block in here, and this thing is not on. So if I take this other grass block I have and I click it in there, that level emitter now turns on. Well, this is pretty awesome. This means depending on how many items are in your system, you can set redstone signals, turn machines on and off. I mean, do all sorts of automation that's outside of the Applied Energistics network and auto crafting. This opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. So if we come over here, here's an example of one thing that you could do with a system like that. Let's power this up and take a look what's in the storage. So we have blocks of iron and we have iron ingots. So that's pretty cool. This is automated right now. So if our iron ingots go below a certain amount, it's going to take iron blocks, put them into a furnace, and get more iron ingots out to replace it. So we should always have about 500 ingots in here. If I take a stack out, we go below that limit, it starts using iron blocks, and it starts creating more blocks of iron ingots. Or I'm sorry, more iron ingots out of the blocks. So if I take out a few of these, we do that. Alright, so that's pretty cool. We can see that happening. This is also set up if we go above 600 iron ingots, it's going to take all the extras, put into a compressor, and try and make iron blocks. So if I click all these guys back in there, we go up above 700, and now this is going down and our blocks of iron are going back up. So again, we're always keeping between 500 and 600 iron ingots in our system at all times. Everything else gets turned into blocks of iron. So this is using a whole bunch of things that we've seen before. We're using import buses on the side. We're using export buses on the top. This export bus is exporting blocks of iron when there's an active redstone signal. And this is just an electric furnace. And above it, we have an ME level emitter that's saying if there's 500 iron ingots in here, or if there's less than 500 iron ingots in there, emit a redstone signal. So this one right here, this is on a compressor. This is exporting iron ingots only if there's a redstone signal, and it's doing that. It's going to emit a redstone signal when the iron ingots are above 600. So we can actually see those lights turn on. If I do this at a certain angle, maybe we can kind of see it. Let me type in some nonsense here. Oop. Let me actually delete this and type in some nonsense. Okay, so now we can see that stuff over here. So if I pull out a bunch of these iron ingots, you can see this redstone signal turns on. And then once this goes above 500, this will turn back off. Yep, just like that. And then the same thing for the compressor. When it goes above 600, this turns on. When it goes below 600, this turns right back off. And the compressor finishes all the items that are inside, and the system's happy. It always has its between 500 and 600. Alright guys, well that pretty much covers most of Applied Energistics, the parts that I use in Ultimate 147. There are other items here that I didn't cover. You can do different color cables and set up different colored networks. There's quartz tools and things which I really have never used. There's a bunch of these processors For a lot of these items, you will need these diamond processors and the gold processors, so you will need both gold and diamond. There's like the entropy accelerator and vibration catalyst, which both do some pretty cool things, which I really never use, but you could check those out on the wiki or experiment yourself. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers Applied Energistics, pretty much everything that I have ever used it for. The new Applied Energistics, like the new version that it said that was available, 11E, has a lot more cool things. And instead of just using the regular quartz, it also uses nether quartz, so be on the lookout for that. Alright guys, that's it for this Applied Energistics tutorial or spotlight or whatever you want to call it. I hope you guys learned some things about Applied Energistics here, all the way from start to crazy automation. Yep, that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.